What's up guys, Squid Dude here, and today I got another build tutorial for you on the Alien Clapton. The Alien Clapton was an original concept by Blue Eye Goon 83 over on Instagram, and what it is basically a multi-core fused Clapton that is wrapped around with a D-core Clapton. This is a difficult build at first. There's a lot of things that rely on a certain feeling, but once you get those techniques down, it's not too bad. Homeboy OC has a build tutorial on this over on Local Vape's YouTube channel, and Richey Oliver has one as well. I'll have links to those in the description, so I recommend checking those out. So let's get to it. Alright, so the tools that we're using today is a drill, which I finally bought my ass a new one, and we'll also be using 2 pairs of nylon tip pliers, a pair of regular pliers, wire cutters of course, some scissors, a screwdriver to wrap your coil around, something for your atomizer, tweezers of course. We will be using masking tape for this build as well, just a little bit. For this build I'll be using 36 gauge Nichrome 80 from Twisted Messes, and I will be using Anarchist Wire 26 gauge. Both wires are available on Twisted Messes website. Alright, so to make this wire, it's a 3-step process. In the first step, you're gonna do a basic Clapton, and we're gonna be using the 36 gauge, and we're gonna wrap that around the 26 gauge. In order to make the final wire, it's a 3-to-1 ratio of whatever core wire you're using for your basic Clapton. So in this case, we're using 26 gauge. So you'll need 3 pieces of 26 gauge for your final wire. So I went ahead and straightened 3 pieces of 26 gauge, which measured out to about 9 inches each in length. I'm gonna go ahead and start this initial Clapton. I like to hold the wire in between my pinky ring and middle finger. Alright, so I clapped in about 8 to 9 inches of wire. You don't need that much. I tend to make a little bit more than I need just in case I mess up in the beginning of the next process. So really you just need to clap in about 6 inches and you'll be set. Alright, so for the next step, what we're going to do is we're going to remove the 26 gauge core from that outer 36 gauge wire, and we'll just gently pull that 26 gauge wire out. So what I like to do is I like to clip the very end of that 26 gauge just to ensure that it's nice and smooth, and while you're pulling it out there's nothing there that is dragging on the 36 gauge that could potentially damage it. What I like to do is just grab that 26 gauge core and then use my fingernails or my thumb to hold that 36 gauge in place as I'm removing it. So you just want to gently, at first it was snagged there, but you just want to gently remove that wire. Now you have a D-cored 36 gauge Clapton. So what we're going to do next is we're actually going to take this D-core 36 gauge Clapton and we're going to stretch it out. And when we go to stretch this out, when you go to stretch it out, there's a feel towards it. So the end goal is to stretch it out enough to where the Clapton wire still retains a circular shape as if it was still wrapped around something circular. What will happen is if you stretch it too far, it will go from having that circular shape to being flat, which at that point the wire is no good. If you don't stretch it out enough, it will be really difficult to use when we go to do the final step. So it's a feeling thing. For me, when I'm stretching it out, right when the wire pulls and has a little bit of tension to it and I can feel like it's coming back on itself, that's when I typically stop. And since I did such a long length of Clapton wire, I'm gonna have to stand up and move it. Usually if I do 4 to 6 inches, I can just stretch it with my 2 hands. But yeah, so let's go ahead and do it. Alright, so I went ahead and stretched a couple of these wires out. The bottom one I stretched to the point where the Clapton wire is not usable, and then the top is the wire that you want. So once you get your wire stretched out to this point, then you're ready to start the alien wrap. Alright, so now we're ready to start our alien wrap, but before we do so, there is a lot to consider. I mean, a lot. And a lot of this is feel, so I can only explain it so much, and then you got to kind of figure it out by feel and by doing it. So there's a couple things I've learned and a couple tips or tricks that I've learned while doing this. The first thing is the way that I position the 3 core wires into the chuck. So what I'll do is I'll put all 3 pieces into one of the flat portions of the jaws, and then I'll wrap about 1/4 of an inch and I'll stop. I'll remove the wire from the drill and then I'll reinsert it and center it, and that will help ensure that the beginning portion of the wires stay nice and flat and parallel. What I also have found that helps a little bit is to place a little piece of masking tape at the free end of the 3 pieces of 26 gauge. So that just helps stabilize them while it's spinning around. The other thing to consider is the way that this whole process works is when we start our wrap, you're going to be wrapping this in the opposite direction that you did your original Clapton. So I wrap my original Clapton clockwise. So I will be wrapping this alien wrap counterclockwise. And when you go to wrap this, you got to get it all in one shot. If you mess up, there's no reversing the drill. What's happening is that core is stretching and removing the spring out of your alien Clapton wire. So once it's laid down, that spring has been removed and there's no getting it back. So the best thing to do is just breathe and practice this a few times, and you'll eventually get the feeling. The other thing to consider, which is extremely important, is the amount of tension that you're pulling on your alien Clapton wire while it's feeding to the core. You want to have enough tension on it to where it will lay flat. If you put too much tension on it, however, then the 3 pieces of wire, instead of running parallel, are going to be more likely to form a triangle. And at that point, you can't get it back. If you put too little pressure on it, then the alien Clapton wire won't lay flat. It will kind of have a bubble to it, and you won't be able to catch a good groove. So I have found that a slow to medium speed works best for me. And you might be able to do it faster, or you might be able to do it better slower. So once again, these are all things that you got to think of and consider, but it basically comes down to doing it a few times until you can get it right. So let's give it a try. As a reminder, you want to make sure that your drill is spinning in the opposite direction from what you did when you wrapped your Clapton. So I will be wrapping this in a counterclockwise motion, which is actually what I prefer, and it allows me to see the wire feeding into the core a little bit better. Another thing is slow to medium speed, and also when you're feeding this wire to the core, you actually want to lead it. You kind of want to have it angled and leading the core. You don't want it perpendicular, kind of like how you do a normal fused Clapton. So at this point, I just wrapped enough to where I'm going to go ahead and take this out and reinsert it into the drill a little bit more center. This just helps keep those three wires as parallel and flat as possible. All right, so I'll go ahead and I'll clip the end here. And as you can see, we have a slight twist over the length of the wire, just like a fused Clapton. So we'll go ahead and remove it from the drill, and we'll straighten the wire in the same fashion as a fused Clapton. Once it's straightened, coil it up, mount it, and vape it. So we just completed making the Alien Clapton wire, and it is an absolutely beautiful Clapton. It's a multi-core fused Clapton with a facelift. This is what the wire should look like when it's completed. Let's go ahead and coil her up. Alright, so I'm going to be using the Twisted Messes RDA. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do 5 wraps. And this wraps just like a fused Clapton. So once you lay it down, it's stiff and it's not gonna move on you. So I'm using a 3mm screwdriver. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and work out these hot spots. And what I like to do is whenever I make a coil with a lot of wire, I just gently pulse it. And I mean gently. I'm just introducing the current to it. Already have a wicked hot spot. There it is. Check out the wicking properties of this. Much like a fused Clapton. So we just finished our Alien Clapton. We did 5 wraps around a 3mm screwdriver. It clocked in at 0.18 ohms as a single coil using the USA Ohm Meter. Go ahead and show you a little bit of the vapor production just off the coil. Really comes out pretty violently. This is built in the Twisted Messes RDA. I have the airflow set to the single coil mode, and I have it 2/3 of the way open. I'm using the Beyond Vape Arthas 18650 mod. Go ahead, take a few rips. Getting a nice warm flavor with that multi-core. It's definitely a little bit warmer than a fused Clapton. Heats up a little bit faster, but the flavor's still there, still great. It's fantastic, if not a little bit better than a fused Clapton. All around, it's a fantastic build. It's absolutely beautiful. I think it's one of the best looking fused Clapton or just Clapton variations that are out there. It's tricky, so don't give up. Hopefully this was helpful. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. Thanks for watching.